Good morning and welcome to the 43rd edition of the AutoTalk Weekly Wrap. Getting a bit of funny noise down the line from you today, Graham.
It's probably our phone lines all full of water.
Yes,
Do they still do phone lines?
you are out in West Auckland. It has been a smidge damp out there. Is that a fair way to say it? Everything okay? Everything okay with the staff in their homes over the last week?
Yeah, we've been really lucky. I mean, I know there's some pretty awful stories out there. Where I live, it's about a couple of 100 meters away from this disaster that's the Opanuku stream, and literally stuff just washed away, homes underwater up to the second story. Yeah, pretty devastating stuff. And I mean, a lot of cars obviously lost. But people's livelihoods and things too. But here at Croydon's, no, we're really lucky. Our team's been good. Probably the worst damage has been, first of all, you can see him in a Hawaiian shirt on a stinking humid Auckland day. I'm saturated from head to toe being out in the rain. It's the ultimate series of contradictions right now in Auckland. And if you're watching this in the sunny climes of the South Island or like that, don't hurry up here for the Waitangi weekend. It's a bit shit.
It's feeling a bit tropical, I think is the way to describe it.
Yes. I look like I've been out inside a Rarotonga rain shower at the moment.
Yeah,
exactly.
Look,
there's been some real horror stories out there amongst the industry, and I feel terrible for your dealers out there, particularly who you've lost stock or you've had stock issues or all the different things that are going on. It's just a really horrible time to work through.
Yeah, and we'll touch on that a bit. I've had a very busy week. We've been pushing through with a whole pile of stories and magazine stuff and all that kind of thing. And I have some sympathy for those people who have had COVID in the past and then had a bit of fatigue afterwards. It kicked my butt. I was surprised, really surprised. I mean, I thought I'd knocked it off in like 2 days, and then this week I'd hit like 1 in the afternoon from working, and my legs would just go, "Yeah, you're done." Which, considering I work sitting down, is saying something. So. Yeah, I think I'm coming right now. So that's the key thing, and my family made it through unscathed as well. So
you should have been super Graham. I like 2 days. What was that? Was that COVID? I'm not too sure. Back bouncing up again. So
yeah. Perhaps it's the added stress of staff. Anyway,
hey, welcome to my world, Richard. Come on in. The water's fine.
Now, we're having a bit of an express version today because we went out to like 45 minutes last week, and we need to balance these up a little bit. We've got a few things to do. I think you've got to help some West Aucklanders replace their flood-damaged cars, I imagine. You probably had a few of those in the door.
Yep,
so
it's happening already.
Let's start with the statistics for the month. And it was a strong month for the new car trade. I'm just going to pull up my window there. Tech issues are no stranger to this stream. So, strong start for new car passenger registrations in January. Tuna Kita started 2023 strongly, with each brand registering more than 1,500 new passenger vehicles for the month. Mitsubishi saw the reverse of this time last year with 982. The overall supply chain is improving for Toyota, which has a strong bank of new vehicle orders released in the 12 months. Passenger car market was up 4.4% year on year to 9273. The best-selling car was the Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross, followed by the RAV4 and the Kia Stonic. Commercial market down 30% on the same period last year, with 3,207 units registered. Again, not exactly surprising. In that it's the first month of the clean car standard, so we would have seen if anyone was going to get a ute on the yard, they were going to do it late last year, and I guess we'll see a bit of a dip before they start running out of those stocks that they've kind of pre-done. Big month for the EVs as well. I think the top-selling EV or dedicated EV was the BYD Atto 3. Kia Niro did well. MG ZS did well. The Teslas were a little bit further down the ranks. Hilux was the top ute, but by 4 units.
Wow, celebration in the Toyota showrooms over 4 this month.
It's been a little while. So good on them for getting all those registered. That must have been a bit of work. So that was the new car market. Now, the import market.
Not so cutesy.
Down nearly a third year on year. Passenger market down 27.9%, commercials 30.4%. Toyota was the top. Toyota Aqua was the top car. Toyota and Hiace again were the top in the commercial market. What's going wrong, Graham? And is this an ongoing thing, or is it we expecting it to be relatively? It's going to come back. What are you thinking?
And I sound like the eternal optimist. I think it actually is going to come back a wee bit. All of these issues really are related around supply. As you know, we talked about it. We've had a lot of supply issues coming out of Japan for quite some time now. And we're seeing the tail end of this, where there just weren't the vehicles in Japan to purchase, or if they were at prices that were just unavoidable. That's changing. The market in Japan's come down. The pricing's come down. You might see it in a column coming to a magazine near you sometime soon, I hear. And we'll see more stock on the ground at probably some more affordable levels feeding the way in. And probably, if you think, to be fair, the issues right now in Auckland, that's also going to feed into that marketplace. There'll probably be a lot of first-time registrations just replacing those flood-damaged vehicles too. But further on, I can see that we'll probably have a better run through this part of the year, this first half of the year anyway. What it'll do the second half, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of car. I mean, speaking just initially on Monday morning to Turners and Mannheim, they're both expecting into the four figures of cars each. So there's a lot of vehicles that are going to need to be replaced. And as you said, you guys have already seen a few of those in your yard. You're probably one of the closest used car dealers to the main areas of destruction. Yes. And it's that's going to feed in. Sadly, it's a sad thing, but that will feed in to the market for the next little bit. Well, look, here's hoping that that things do kick back up for the used car market. Is finance an issue? I mean, you know, people aren't necessarily borrowing off the mortgage to do it anymore, but are you still managing to get people money to buy these cars?
Yes, yeah, we are. And look, you're right. Borrowing against the house is no longer a thing. But that's not a bad thing for our industry either, because it feeds the business back into your F&I managers to actually start selling finance products instead. Yeah,
yep,
exactly. So there's actually profit back in that market. Yep, it's tough, and it's been tough for a long time. There's no new story there. It's been a difficult place to be. But yes, there are still finance customers out there, and yes, there is still a degree of profitability in that part of your business, plus all the add-on products as well. The year hasn't started out well, but there's a lot of reasons as to why, and there's also reasons that I think it'll probably improve a wee bit in the first quarter, maybe the first 6 months of 2023 anyway.
Yeah, no, excellent. Now let's move on to the floods. We'll discuss a few little things around those. First off, we have a harrowing tale, I guess, from nothing compared to, I guess, what a lot of people went through. We've got to be clear on that. From the Wairau dealer strip, which was probably one of the biggest areas of damage to dealers. I know there's a little bit of flooding in Greenland as well. But certainly that Wairau Valley, a number of new car dealers and used car dealers got hit in the floods. I had a chat to Sam Palmer from MG, or Tristram MG, Tristram European, I'm not sure what you call the dealership. And they were well flooded, unfortunately. I'm not sure you can see in the photo on the screen there, but if you jump to our site, you can see a better image. They had a decent amount of water right through their yard. So Sam was forced to basically ditch his car on Wairau Road to escape the flooding. That caused millions in damage and took multiple lives on Friday. At the time I wrote the story, we were aware of 3 dealerships. We're aware of more that have suffered damage now. But Tristram MG, Archibald and Shorter, and Continental Cars. I know that there were a number of used car dealers covered. We just couldn't get through to people at the time. So Sam says it was pretty scary at one point, as it was just after 5 and the... as it was just...
Was it me?
Someone's calling me. As it was just after 5 and the flooding got quite bad, but then it slowed down, Palmer explains. We moved cars back as fast as we could, but then there was a second downpour, a massive one, and we decided we had to get out of there, he says. I was driving down Wairau Road and had to leave my car there. I didn't get home till around 11. So it's having to leave your car and wade through water to get out. That's not great. Palmer says a number of vehicles were unable to be moved and they were affected. They've been identified and they were waiting for the insurance assessors to attend. He says the damage is a minor issue compared to the fact that people lost their lives, and he's glad that all the team's dealership was safe. That's definitely good to put it in context. Further down the road, Archibald and Shorter, water entered the yard into a low level in the showroom. Thankfully, with all the vehicles in the showroom, and have a look at the photo there too, being SUVs, mostly Land Rovers, none of the new vehicles at the time they were saying it had been affected. there was a story in the Herald saying all these cars were done, but if you actually have a look at the photo, it's a bunch of Defenders sitting in water up to about their up to about their tires. So I
It's
think
the
they're going to
natural
be
habitat.
okay. Unfortunately, their used yard was hit, and there's some used Range Rovers sitting out in the yard that were a little bit damper. So around 30 used vehicles were being assessed for damage. Our dealership was severely impacted by the flooding, as were many businesses and homes in Auckland. General Manager Sean Rushby says, "We were heartened by the generosity of the team spirit shown by our staff from both Archwood and Shorter and other Guild Group dealerships who left their homes to assist with the cleanup. Right now, our main focus is on the families of our teams and the wider community have been hit so hard by this weather event." Across the road at Continental Car Services, there was a bit more of a flood. Unfortunately, the video has been removed from TikTok, but someone, we assume a staff member within the dealership, posted a video from within the dealership of all the new cars in the dealership sitting in about 20-30 centimetres of water. Though whether they were up to their floor level yet, I do not know. But they clearly have had a bit of a hard hit there as well. So, yeah, everyone out in your kind of West Auckland dealer strip survived, though, Graham?
I think so. From all the people we've spoken to and all we've seen, fortunately, most of the dealerships in West Auckland are in upper lying areas, so we didn't have the flooding issues that the poor guys in Wairau Road did. But again, if you're watching this from outside of Auckland and you've just seen this constant media stream on what's going on, sometimes the media tends to or has been accused of pumping things up a wee bit, a bit more newsworthy. It's not quite as bad as it seems. This time, it was worse. It was every bit as bad as it looks in the video, in the photos, and it was probably worse than that. Just the localized devastation around businesses, and some of them motor-related businesses, not necessarily dealerships. But I know, for example, the guys at Fleetline that do all the canopies and bits and pieces, their place is underwater, and they make all the canopies and bits and pieces for all these trucks out on the road. When they were up Opanuku Stream, it's all the sort of the flow-on effects we don't necessarily see in the media. It was a pretty awful time. I was out in the middle of the storm, in the worst part, and I have not seen rain like that in New Zealand. I don't think of that intensity for that duration. And from a storm chaser like me, you'd know that's saying quite a bit. That was pretty amazing. My wife is trapped in it. She was trying to get from Waitakere across to Kumeu. She was going backwards and forwards from closure to mud puddle. Just everywhere you look. So it's going to take a long time to unwrap this. The used industry, if you've lost vehicles, they're replaceable in that sense. For the new industry, I feel for you guys because you can't just go and magic up new stock from somewhere. It's not just sitting in a storage yard somewhere to replace your front line or pre-ordered cars or cars worse that customers have waited for sort of 3 months, 6 months or so. And then suddenly, start again. What do you do? So there's some long-term repercussions there to work through.
And I guess the other thing we have to deal with now is there's probably going to be some cheaper, slightly damp cars popping up in competition on probably mostly Facebook Marketplace, I imagine.
Oh, well, you know what I think about Facebook Marketplace when it comes to selling cars, right? And I will say this, if you're watching this, I'm pretty sure you don't buy your cars from Facebook Marketplace. And if you know friends and family that do, you get what you pays for in that particular forum. MTA put the warning out, and I think it was, aside from saying you should, go and see an MTA-approved dealer, that's marketing 101, I think it was a good point, is there's going to be some, pretty ordinary stuff out there that people are going to give the old, spray and wet and forget, bit of the old Glen 20 inside, bit of a dry at the carpets, and away she goes. Yeah, that marketplace, that's since time immemorial, there's been stuff that's a bit dodgy passing on through it. So Stick to the people you know.
Well, it was an interesting comment that I had made to me by Greg Hedgepeth from Turners. He says you won't be seeing any of the flood damaged vehicles on their yards. They are putting them through processing through their DVA process. Both Turners, as we mentioned before, and Mannheim were ramping up when I spoke to them on Monday to process those vehicles. They'd both put on or arranged for additional space to handle them. Greg said they were expecting hundreds, if not thousands, of cars to come their way following the floods. They're ramping up in terms of staff, technology, and space to cope. Working with insurance companies to see what they can do to help them best. And over at Mannheim, Andy Cox, their head of the head of sales for Selwich, says they've set up a temporary location in South Auckland with the ability to hold 400 to 500 vehicles on top of their existing sites. So yeah, they were working pretty closely with the insurance market to kind of get things ramped up. That's an important part of the market because, the faster they can get those cars turned through, the better it is for the insurance industry, who are having to pay out on these cars, which, means they lose less money. If they can get more money for them, then all the better. And also for those who aren't insured, being able to dispose of those vehicles through a channel where they can get the most out of them and get into another vehicle is very important for getting their lives back, I guess.
Well, there's a point to this I'd like to make, in that we've got customers that have had a 48-hour turnaround from their insurance company. So this is how quickly things are happening. Is 48 hours after the floods, their insurance company is saying, yep, we've seen the photos, we've seen your car in the water, claim settled. And we'll deal with the stuff afterwards in terms of picking your car up or working out with the assessor what's going to happen to it. Your claim's approved, go and buy something else. And so I think the insurance companies, by and large, bless them, are working really hard and fast on this to make sure people are inconvenienced for as little a time as possible. And full kudos to them, and full kudos to Mannheim for Turners for setting up these processing facilities with assessors, I believe, on site. So the vehicles are literally coming off the transporters. Assessors are there already from the insurers. Claims are being processed. I've heard a number that could be as close to 4,000 vehicles affected.
Yeah. Wow. Another interesting little move by someone in the trade was our friends over at BYD Automotive. So they actually put an offer out to all their owners that if anyone had a Atto 3 and it was flood damaged, even if you were still waiting on your insurance company or you were waiting on or whatever, they would offer a rental car, a BYD Atto 3 rental car for 5 days. To help people who were having issues with their car after the rain get back on the road quickly. So I think that's a really nice move from BYD. If you've got any recent clients who are suffering some hardships from trying to sort their car out, maybe see what you can do to help them. With that means getting them in a loaner while they choose a car from you. Well, I guess it just channels the business towards you once their claim is finally settled. I don't know. There's probably smarter marketing people than I out there with ideas as to how to help out these customers while also helping get the business at the same time.
Well, there's an issue there, and there's already a shortage of rental cars in Auckland. We know that from some people that are trying to get a vehicle for something else at the moment. There are no rental cars left because that market's been soaked up. But previously, what you do is you might register a couple of cars in the yard for your customers and you put plates on them and send them away. But with the Clean Car Discount Scheme, given
you got to
that
pay the bill,
it's hybrid, can't do it. So that eliminates a few little bits and pieces there. But I imagine, like us, we're sort of working through a number of different initiatives for our customers to make sure that they've got as little convenience as possible. And ultimately, to be honest, that we can also organise a replacement vehicle for them too.
Yeah, exactly. Now, on to our last story of the day, and we'll knock this one out relatively quickly. Too Cheap Cars wins market share in Q3. And we put this in because it's good to hear some good news out of Too Cheap Cars after what's been a pretty miserable period. And also, I think they're a bit of a barometer of the market. New Zealand Automotive Investments Limited reports it has increased its used car market share to 7% in the third quarter to 31st December 2022, in spite of the used car market dropping by 9.5%. Oh, to only be dropping 9.5%. NZAI says its Too Cheap Cars market positioning is increasingly relevant to the tough economic environment, resulting in its estimated market share of used vehicle registrations growing 0.4% year on year. It says Too Cheap also strengthened its position as the largest Japanese used vehicle retailer in New Zealand in terms of total used imports. They did 6,296 cars to the 31st of December 2022. Would you like to have sold 6,296 cars for the year, Graham?
No, because where the hell would I put them? We've got one site. Yeah, good problem to have, right? Yes. And look, we spent time analysing and talking about them and asking ourselves if this was like the beginning of the end or the end of the beginning, whatever it was. And I think we've probably answered some questions through this piece today to say that the new Broom, the new team going forward, they may be onto the new right formula, so to speak. And also to get probably some of those figures we're seeing is that Broom sweeping through some of that older stock and things that they might have had hanging around, because there's talk about stock mixes and things too being the wrong one. So what I'd like to see, and I think when we can sort of see a trend, the numbers for the first quarter 2023, and then you'll have a better idea about how this is going to track long term. But I suspect we'll see the numbers up.
Here's, I guess, a measure of how that the size of that company works. I mean, what's a good profit per unit on a car these days, Graham?
In the used market, honestly, I think if you work at I'm not giving away confidential secrets here, no. But I think if you work on about sort of 3 over wharf would be an average figure in the industry, right? So $3,000 over your landed cost. It might be more than that. Some work on 4 over, some work on a bit less than that, some work on 2 over. And then so the numbers then come down to, well, what does that cost actually at the wharf? And this is part of Too Cheap's formula, obviously. It's trying to trim those little logistics costs down and down and down and down. But if you could attain 3,000 over its landed cost, I think you'd be pretty damn happy.
Yeah, so it's 6,900 vehicles times 3,000.
Their margin's not that though.
I know. That's about $21 million a year.
Yeah, yeah. And
So
but we know. I mean,
yeah.
You don't need to be a calculator to know that their margin is not that. They work on much slimmer margins at all ends. But if they're making $1,000 a car, right? $1,000 a car, then that's still not bad, right?
Oh, exactly. That's what are we after there? Yeah.
So here's the words of wisdom.
$6.9 million a year if they're doing 1,000 a car. But look, even if they're doing 500 a car, that's still $3.5 million. So
in the words of the great J.B. Hunt, who ran the world's largest trucking company in the States, thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of trucks, he said, if my trucks make a cent a mile, he said, every single day I'm making money. And, there's the model for you.
Exactly. Right. Cool. Well, look, that's a nice quick one that ended up being 22 odd minutes long. But look, thanks everyone for joining us again. We'll be back again next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. And I will have been to Australia. I'm off to Australia to look at some stuff with Nissan. And then we have late next week, I believe, the Moana Blue run discussion around the clean car standard.
Thursday.
Yes. So if you're with VIA, you would have received an email about that. If not, and you're a Moana Blue customer, maybe go and give the team there a bit of a tap on the shoulder and confirm the information. But we'll be going to that, and then we will talk to you probably more about it next week on the AutoTalk Weekly Wrap. Have a good weekend, Graham.
Stay dry, everyone.